like I want to see what life is going to be like in 3 or 4 months under the Joe Biden inflation situation. And I just want to go to Whole Foods so I can spend that much right now. And I went into Whole Foods, and one of the things I like about Whole Foods is it's populated mainly by people who would probably string me up from the rafters if they knew that I was a conservative. Like, generally speaking, it's interesting because the company was founded by a guy who's kind of like a libertarian. It really isn't a left-wing company, but it's populated largely by left-wing people. And then it was bought by Amazon, which is this giant behemoth of a company that everything about the left says they should hate, but yet they're still in Whole Foods and they still love. They still have a lefty leader with Jeff Bezos, of course. So it's an interesting place, and I find it to be fascinating to walk in. And I walked in the other day, and a guy walked by me, and he had an Amazon shirt on. However, it wasn't an Amazon shirt because you know what? It's Pride Month. That's right. It's Pride Month. And if you don't take pride on who you sleep with on Pride Month, you're just not prideful enough. And one of the things humanity has always been able to strive for is more pride. Yes, sure, one of the 7 deadly sins. Ignore that for just a moment and take more pride in what you're doing with your genitals. It's important. And his shirt, instead of saying Amazon, it was rainbow colored, and it said Glamazon. Isn't that adorable? A Glamazon t-shirt. I want a Glamazon t-shirt. Not to wear, but it just would be fun to have. Look, I have a private life too, okay? It's funny because the Glamazon thing made me think about Amazon as a company, and they're very, at least forward to the public, a very left-wing company. Now, the AOCs of the world have all sorts of problems with Amazon because they're only paying their workers like $20 an hour, and that's not nearly enough for AOC. So she kicked them out of New York, and she was able to get that done and make sure that people in New York didn't have any jobs as they were recovering from an economic catastrophe. That was really admirable of her. But like generally speaking, really left-wing company. Pride Week, Pride Month, Pride Year, they take very seriously over at Amazon. In fact, they even had a Pride party going on. And the reason I know that is not because I attended. I know that's going to surprise you. It's not because people were saying what a great job Amazon did with their Pride party, because that's a brave, progressive step to take a company that sells all sorts of things to all sorts of people and make such a public statement about their pride in, where you want to put your things, wherever you want to put, whatever your thing, where you want that to live. I don't know. It's up to you. You do what you want to do. So, so they had this Pride party, and I only know about it because, of course, you can never be woke enough. You can't ever get there. It's a road with a destination that's too far for you ever to arrive. And when you get close to it, it moves farther and farther away. We see this with Amazon as they've had a trans die-in at Amazon, and it disrupted the company Pride party. Now, the company's taken the step to have a Pride party. They could also say, you know what, your sexuality, whatever you want, we're certainly not going to say you can't work here if you are straight or gay or whatever. You can work here, but we're not going to celebrate your sexuality at work. This is work. You guys have jobs here to do. We want you to, I don't know, ship crappy Chinese products all around the nation. We don't want you to be talking about your sexuality at work. I mean, in fact, isn't that kind of like the whole thing with the Me Too movement, is you're not really supposed to talk about sexuality at work? But apparently that's off the table when it's Pride Month. And so they had a Pride party, but I guess the trans people in the audience were very upset. Here's a picture of what it looked like, and wow, trans people lying on the ground, faking their deaths. And they had to fake their deaths because they weren't actually, dead. Because trans people aren't getting murdered like crazy like they always claim. We've been through that fact check before, and it's a fascinating one. What's interesting here is they're upset at Amazon. Why? Because Amazon continues to sell books that take a different view on the transgendered issue. We've talked to some of the authors of those books on this program, and one of the things that you might find interesting if you've been watching the show for a while, we've also talked to an author of a book that said, hey, maybe the trans thing isn't the wonderful idea and concept and movement that we think it is. Maybe there's some issues here we should be investigating a little more carefully. And he had his book actually pulled from Amazon. So they haven't left all the books that are critical of trans activism on Amazon, but apparently they've left some, and that's too much. You see, people hearing views that are different than yours is the equivalent of you being killed. That is, words are violence, boys and girls. You should know that by now. And it's fascinating to watch this happen. And you see a company like Amazon now, what are they going to do? They have to react to this now. What are they going to do? The typical way these companies have acted for years and years and years is to say, we're sorry. We'll take those books away. We'll make you feel more welcome. Why don't you get a few weeks off to recover from this horror show we put you through? You don't really need to show up to work anymore. We'll still pay you and everything, but we can't expect you to work in the condition that you're in after we allowed people to choose to buy a book about a topic you disagree with. That's been the way things are going for a long time. But do you sense a change? Do you sense a change? Do you sense that something going the opposite direction here, a force pushing back a little bit, America waking up a little bit and saying, wait a minute, this is dumb. Why are we reacting this way? What do you mean we can't say the things that we want to say? What do you mean we have to show up to work and do work? What do you mean if you're offended at work, you get to just shut down and protest your employer? What is this? What society is this? Who learned to live this way? I know I didn't. I showed up to work a lot of days and did not like what I was doing at work. Most of the time because it was work. I didn't want to work. I wanted to be very lazy and sit at home. But I showed up anyway, and I powered through the day. Why? Because that's, I don't know, what you're supposed to do, right? I'm not breaking new ground here. You show up to work. If you want to get paid, you do your job, then you take that payment, you go home, and you live your life as you choose. I want that separation, don't you? I want what they always talk about a work-life balance, which is, of course, really difficult to form in a perfectly equal way. But what you do want is the ability to go to work, to earn a living, to do something you hopefully enjoy that you think is impacting the world in some positive way, and then go home and use that money to get nachos Bel Grande and watch baseball all night. Like that's America, right? Did I lose the plot somewhere? I don't understand. Well, let me give you some of the pushback because I think this is important and we should be highlighting it. Elon Musk has changed quite a bit over the years. At least his perception has changed quite a bit because he was a left-wing guy. He was a guy praised by the left. He was in every ESG fund. Tesla was a big electric car company. Every indication pointed to this guy being a left-wing guy. And as he's even said, it's not that I've changed. It's just that the left has gone crazy. And now all of a sudden I seem like I'm a right-wing guy. I haven't moved at all. He has decided to say to his workers, you know what? Here's the thing. If you don't want to come to work, you can't work here. Now that seems like the most basic piece of advice a boss has ever given. Of course, if you don't work, you don't get paid. Like that's not supposed to be how society works, but that is how society works, or at least has for the past couple of years. Here's what Musk said. He told Tesla workers to return to the office full time or resign. Yeah, that's the headline. Full time or resign. Here's part of the letter. Anyone who wishes to do remote work must be in the office for a minimum, and I mean minimum, of 40 hours a week, or depart Tesla. This is less than we ask of factory workers. If there are particularly exceptional contributors from whom this is impossible, I will review and approve those exceptions directly. Moreover, the office must be a main Tesla office, not a remote branch office unrelated to the job duties. For example, being responsible for Fremont factory human relations, but having your office be in another state. Seems like he was calling someone out very specifically with that last line. But the point is, hey, we're paying a lot of money for office space. you should show up to it. And look, there are some jobs, of course, where you can work from home and everything's going to be fine. And I don't think that's a problem for most employers. But there's also a lot of people who take advantage of that situation and they don't work 40 hours a week. What he's saying is, hey, you're supposed, I expect more than that out of you. I expect you to dedicate yourself to this place a little bit. That doesn't mean you have no life outside of the place, but you're supposed to care. And if you don't care, go away. We'll find people who do care. This is kind of the way companies used to operate all the time. Now, someone asked him on Twitter, hey, Elon, a lot of people are talking about this leaked email. Any additional comment to people who think coming into work is an antiquated concept? And he responded, they should pretend to work somewhere else. Look, you might not want to work for a guy who says that, but he's being honest. And he's asking for a little personal responsibility, and it's his right, his company, to do so. Netflix, of course, has had their own issues with left-wing people. And you might say, well, Elon Musk, he seems like he's now more conservative than a lot of Republicans are these days. Maybe he doesn't count. Well, Netflix is not that way. They are very liberal. They're still doing all the very liberal things. Their pride parties have plenty of pro-trans, non-die-in participants. And so they are, of course, the most woke of all wokeness, if you've looked at their history. Well, Netflix is now telling the woke workers to quit if they are offended. They had a memo out as well. Great inspiration, entertainment and thrills and inspires. It sparks laughter, tears, gasps and sighs, stirring our emotions and nourishing our spirit. As employees, we support the principle that Netflix offers a diversity of stories, even if we find some titles counter to our own personal values. Depending on your role, you may need to work on titles you perceive to be harmful. If you'd find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the best place for you. Yeah, that is pretty much the way it should be, right? You don't have to agree with everything. I mean, even in a place here where we are all relatively ideologically aligned, there are things that people say on the network that I don't agree with. There are people who do not like the stuff that I say on this network. That's okay. We're adults. We know that people disagree. In fact, that's part of the fascination of life, isn't it? We all know what happens when no one disagrees. You turn into the Lego movie. You walk around saying everything is awesome, and you never disagree. You never get into conflict. You never learn anything new. You never hear a new perspective. Who wants that world unless your head is made out of plastic? Netflix is also saying that the whole free speech thing, it used to be a very liberal issue. And he's criticizing people who are criticizing Netflix for not taking Dave Chappelle off, or Ricky Gervais, or any of these other people who are saying things that are just a tad against what others believe. That should be okay. One of the reasons why we're doing this whole gun special tomorrow is to kind of set the record straight. And we need to be doing more of this in every conversation that we have, every topic. Say what you believe. Believe what you say, and get out there and tell people about it. But also, it doesn't need to be all of your life, right? Your political self is part of the package. It's part of the entire dinner of life. It might be a side dish for you, though, and that's okay. You don't have to go crazy about every single issue. But we should be able to express ourselves and say, hey, this is what I believe, and also be an adult enough to deal with other points of view. We should be an adult enough to show up to work when asked. We should be adult enough to enjoy a pride party without doing a trans die-in. These are not big hurdles to clear for a country like the United States of America.